What would what would you suggest to me? Where should I find my wife?
Let her ask the question.
I just want to. I wanted to finish what she was saying as well too. But
Give the word leader to somebody that is going to have all the responsibilities of being a leader, but he can stop you and say, "Hey, stop doing that, drop the whatever, and go do this." If you don't have the right, you shouldn't have the responsibility.
1 minute later.
You know what though?
That's interesting.
Is because you have more money the other day, because you have like is a lot of responsibility. So if you don't give the word leader to somebody that is going to have all the responsibilities of being a leader, but he can stop you and say, "Hey, stop doing that, drop the whatever, and go." If you shouldn't have the responsibility.
1 minute later.
You know what though?
That's interesting. Hold, Trigger, please. Hold on. Damn. What you think, Black David? What you think about what Fatty said? That's actually interesting. The reason why it's so important. What, Cheeky? What?
No, I'm saying Fatty right. Like Fatty been on this.
No. But see, here's the thing, though. Here's the thing.
Play me down the
Leave me alone. Listen. No. Because the thing is, right? He's saying it's important. It says each of you, but I think he was also speaking more generally.
Saying is, come up.
Why does this title leader matter so much?
It absolutely matters. Thank you.
Like, don't.
All right. The issue that.
And the question of what.
All right. The issue that we're going to continue to have is his pride and his ego is going to be the downfall, because he's not dealing with somebody who's not articulate or smart enough to disprove or even address him as an intellectual being. Because he's too dumb, I have to.
He said that term. I thought it was cheeky. And what it is that
you.
What are you drinking, by the way? What are you?
That's going to hurt your stability and your.
What are you drinking, by the way? What are you?
And what it is that they quit
talking about. This is the
financial stability and all of those other things. So you don't necessarily need a husband to do that.
Rarity, like remember when we were asking if it's rare to get the.
I thought I was leading the company well.
Values to know.
My young brother.
The simple answer is nothing.
Yes, nothing other than leave, meaning that you don't. If your only chance of controlling shit is leaving the relationship, means that you don't have power inside of the relationship.
The nature of men and
I mean, like all. How does that actually manifest, Fatty and Cheeky? You know what I mean? Like it's
something that he says. This is why you pay all the bills, because you have leverage to do what the fuck you want.
Like this shit is so. This is why whenever y'all start talking leader, I hate that term.
Get him.
Me, Fatty, for that. These are the two people I know for sure have been saying this for years. Y'all have fallen for the trick of saying I'm a leader by title alone. And it's not to say that you don't love your wife or your wife is just a master manipulator intentionally.
I wonder if y'all can hear me now. Hope y'all can hear me. Oh gosh. All right, Cheeky was saying something, right? Angry Man speaks of this. He calls it. He speaks of this. He says something about symbolism, or substance over symbolism, or is there substance in the symbolism? That's what the leadership is in today's society. Leadership is just a symbol with no substance. The reason why it has no substance to it is because somehow women, especially in Black culture, were able to define what a leadership is, what a leader is, right? And women in general are very subjective. And it's subjective based upon if they agree with that leadership or not. In the olden days where men had to lead men, whether you agree with that leadership or not, you had to follow that leadership. If you were like, if you go to feudal Japan, where they had shoguns and daimyos, when you go back to medieval Europe, where you had lords and you had the kings, or you go back to what's his name, a popular king. He was in Assassin's Creed Valhalla. I forgot the king's name. He was in the Netflix series Last Kingdom. I forgot his name. But in those medieval times, if you had a lord, or you had a king of, let's say, Wessex, whether you agree with that king or not, you had to follow the instructions of that king, whether you liked it or not. And if you broke a rule of that king's castle or under his rule, he had the power to kick you out that castle, or if you say you stole something in that castle. And one of those rules is, if you steal, we're going to chop your hand off, like in the Bible. That was what was going to happen. Whether you agree to that king or not, or whether you like that king or not. Today, leadership is not defined objectively by the men. Even the men on YouTube will do it. You see the men in these YouTube space make leadership subjective. That's why there's no brotherhood within black men or in Black culture. Because on one breath, you have Black men that want to be players and the type of women they want to date are hoes. But on the next breath, you have traditional guys that want to be traditional and they don't want to date hoes. So there's no definitive objective leadership. It's all subjective. So as Cheeky said, leadership, it's a title alone, it's just a symbol with no substance, as Angry Man would talk about. Angry Man says symbolism with no substance. That's what leadership is. It's a symbol with no substance. Right? And leadership in today's society is only when you want to blame somebody. You want to blame the men on something. That's the only thing leadership is today. That's why Hank or DJ Ham titled it "Men Are the Leaders." Is being used? Is it men are leaders? And quote, is it being used as a weapon? And that's why my title is the way it is, because when it comes to the women following the rules of men, all of a sudden they don't want the patriarchy, and it's controlling, and the men are insecure. But when those women who are autonomous and are just individuals, or who are individuals who you can't really control like that, when they're doing goofiness and they're participating in the hookup culture and the 304 lifestyle, then they want to blame the men and say the men allowed it. But if I come on YouTube, or a traditional guy come on YouTube and start to check the women, that's what leadership is, or start to hold the women accountable to something, or check the women on how they're behaving. It's you're insecure, or you're being too controlling, or it's toxic masculinity, or we don't want any patriarchy. You can't say you want your men to be leadership, but at the same time, you don't want the patriarchy. But at the same time, you don't want to follow the house or the rules of those men. But when shit goes wrong, when you choose to buck the program or not follow those rules, you say it's the man's fault. And that's what the leadership is. It's the man's fault because this individual chose not to follow the leader. But the men have no power to say, to check the women or to give a consequence to the women when they cheat in a relationship, when they be disrespectful to you when you approach them respectfully, um, when they like I said, when you talk about when you go back to feudal Japan, right? And you talk about the shogun. If the shogun had the shogun, right, or when you go to kings, they were the king or ruler of that land. Or you go back to Africa with Mansa Musa and Shaka Zulu and a lot of the kings in Africa. Those kings, they were ruler over that land. When they said things, they had the power to influence that land and control that land. And when they said some shit, shit got done. When there was a punishment to be dished out, it got dished out. When a individual of that castle broke a rule, they got punished. When a samurai broke the code to the shogun's house, he got stripped of that samurai title and became a ronin. There was no shit like we have today where it says, well, the reason why I misbehave, I'm gonna blame the shogun for my misbehavior. No, no, no. The shogun had a fucking rule. It had a fucking law. And when you broke that law, there was a punishment. There was no, it's the shogun's fault because I did this. No, motherfucker. The shogun had a rule and you broke it. It was no shit like you have today where the shogun has to walk away from his rulership or walk out of his territory to get away from his subordinates or the followers. No, if you couldn't follow the fucking shogun, the followers had to get the fuck out the shogun's house. That's how that went down. As the old saying says, lead, follow, or get the fuck out my way. That's what the saying said. Today, that's not the saying. Today is, if I fuck up in the leader's house and I break the leader's rules, it's the leader's fault. And the only power that the leader has in today's setting is to walk away from that house or walk away from that woman in that situation. That's not power. That is not leadership. You're running away from your kingdom or your castle because this bitch is acting up. Nah, this bitch got to leave. And after she leaves, she don't get to get benefit from the house because she broke a rule. That's what leadership is today, that it wasn't that way during feudal Japan, during kings and knights, during Shaka Zulu in Africa. Today, leadership as Cheeky is going to describe it, is just title alone. It's a placeholder. It's a symbolism with no substance. Shout out to the angry man. Let's continue this. I hope this is gonna play correctly. For those of you in the chat, click like, click the share, and subscribe.
But that's just the nature of men and women dynamics. Women say there's a problem. Man says, okay, I'll fix it. And in the process of saying, okay, I'll fix it, you're always acquiescing to what her needs are. So when I say, hey, how about this? Men don't go to work and women go to work. And then y'all go, but who's going to be the leader? And I'm like, tell me what's about to change. Let's say something changes. The thing is, when it comes to men and women,
Cheeky is absolutely correct. Right. That's absolutely correct. Now, my thing to that, or my counter to that is now, I look at that as this, right? If you have an employee that's been showing up every day, they have been respectful to you, they've been doing their job, and they've been employee of the month, employee of the year, all year round for 15 years or 5 years, right? And they come to you with a problem or something that need to be done, of course you're going to be of service to that employee. Or of course you're going to give that employee extra vacation time. Or of course you're going to reward that employee because that employee was doing something good. But I think what Cheeky is describing is that you'll have relationships where, and I want to get married, so I have a right to be concerned, right? Where the man is acquiescing to the woman, but is she acquiescing to that man first? I have a saying. I modified this saying or innovated this saying. You hear the game dating coach guys, they'll say the game is not about the woman, it's about you, the man. And I say the game is about the man first before it's about the woman or anybody else. The reason why I say that now is because leading women in a community that you're the head of or interacting with women every day, you cannot avoid that. When you want to get married, you have to have sex and you're heterosexual male. The game becomes about the women because the game is having knowledge, information, and wisdom and taking what you know to apply, help yourself apply and navigate the game, right? Going to the mailbox, that's the game. Um, Having information about going to your local gas station, you got to pump gas into your car. That's the game because you need to know about the gas prices. That's information. You need to know how the pump operates to pump into your car. That's information, right? So the game has to be about the women because if you intend to get married, if you intend to be in a relationship, if those women are part of your community, if you're working at a job and those women are applying to your job, if you're just having basic conversations, you're always interacting with women. So the women are part of the game just as you're part of the game. They're playing the game, you're playing the game too. So the game is about them and it's about you too. But the game is about you, the man, first before it's about the woman. Why? Because the man is in a leadership position and the woman is responding to that man or following that man by default. Now, what Cheeky described now, right? He said that um, the man is always subservient to the woman. And that's what Happy Life, Happy Wife has been about since the Bloomer era, right? Before the Bloomer era, the man and the woman was subservient to each other. The man went out because the silent generation and the greatest generation, they wasn't going to deal with no chick that didn't cook, clean, or do any of those things. So you had to be a wife to get one of those men, brothers from silent generation and the greatest generation. But ever since the bloomers, it has changed to happy wife, happy life, where the leadership now has become the man being subservient to that woman. But what Chiki left out is that woman being subservient to that man, is she being effective? And that is a concern because most of the men since the bloomers have been preaching that way, teaching that way, and have been molding the environment to be that way. And if it wasn't for the Gen X generation to come about and challenge that, millennials and Gen Z, we'd have no chance. We'd be still doing what the bloomers were doing. So Chiki's correct.
There's been so many people to try to explain how men love and how women love. Men tend to be a little bit more servitude when it comes to their love. It may not be in the way of let me fix your plate, but it's in the way of life sacrifice. Like I am literally working up at 5 a.m., dying little by little, only getting 5 hours of sleep to make sure you're okay. And then even when
that's a good point by Chiki, because this whole fall on the sword and women and children first, and you know, I'm gonna be the sacrificial lamb so that my mother, so that my, well, yeah, your mother too. Well, not really your mother specifically, but your woman and your child can keep living on. Women and children first. So men have always had that thing programmed into them. But the thing is that during the Victorian age, during the greatest generation, the silent generation, and even beyond those generations, that type of masculinity was appreciated and respected by the women of that time or of those times. What changed, and guess what? Those women were held to that same standard that you have to sacrifice for your man, you have to sacrifice for your country, you got to sacrifice for your children, you got to sacrifice for your man. You have to appreciate the men that did these things for you. Today, in the day and age, I think since the 50s or the bloomers, with feminism, Women have walked away from that, or women have chose not to rebel against that. So that's no longer there. That's the difference between that time and this time. The women have chosen to walk away from that programming. Meanwhile, the men are sticking to that program. See, the men of the olden times, they had that self-sacrifice, but they still said, I'm in charge. They were still patriarchal. Yeah, I'm going to sacrifice for my woman and my child and my community, and servitude to my woman and my child and my community, but I'm in charge on how this relationship is ran. I think what's missing today because of the bloomers, that element is taken out of it. And the only part that's left within the leadership part is the self-sacrifice part. Following a man's authority, following his leadership, following his rules, following the way he wants the things to be planned. Those things have been removed. And what's left of it now is the self-sacrifice part. I think what women have done to manipulate certain men in society, to get those men to manipulate the weaker men of society, is to get men to remove the patriarchal parts, the authoritative part, the traditional parts. They left the part where it's just self-sacrificing. So now leadership of what it is today now is self-sacrifice and acquiesce to your woman. And if shit goes wrong, it's your fault. Or she no longer likes you or agrees to you, she's going to leave and it's your fault. And you have no power or say so. You know what I'm saying? I don't know what kind of leadership that is. Because if you hear it on these panels, that's how these women talk. These women don't say, okay, cool. The women don't say, okay, cool. We're going to do A, B, C, and D if you do A, B, and C, and D. Right? And then the thing is, in black culture, every time black men do A, B, C, and D, women switch to E, F, and G. When black men do A, B, C, D, E, F, and G, a black woman switch to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. That's how it's been going on in the black community, where the goalpost by the women has always been moving. And how the boomers have taught Gen X, the millennials, and mainly Gen X and the millennials is men keep acquiescing to women. If she's being disrespectful, if she's not doing what she's supposed to be doing, a boomer will say, well, you got to be a man. Well, you got to make more money, but I'm doing those things. Well, stop asking these so many questions and keep acquiescing to the woman. Instead of the boomers telling the man, no. If you're doing what you're supposed to be doing, and she ain't doing what she's supposed to be doing, stand on your foot and say, hey, if you don't do what you need to be doing, you need to leave or I'm going to leave. But that's not how it was taught to black men. Black men has been taught to keep acquiescing and simping to women, even though black men are doing the entire alphabet and the entire number structure. See what I'm saying?
You aren't okay, right? And let's say you do stay home. If there is a problem, then I will aid you in that as well. So it's just this men have this unending servant leader position that everyone is saying you should want. And then I go, what do you get for it? Or what happens when you say stop and they say, I don't want to? What can you do? And the simple answer is nothing.
Yes, nothing.
Yeah, that's not leadership. Right.